Imagine a 60-ton machine that was built not around an engine or a cockpit, but around a massive 7-barrel cannon capable of shredding a tank in a single second. It is an aircraft that looks like a relic of the past but remains the most intimidating presence on the modern battlefield. It does not hide in the clouds, it hunts at the level of the tree line, surviving direct hits that would vaporize any other aviation platform. This is the A-10 Thunderbolt II. Known to its pilots and the soldiers it protects as the Warthog, it was designed for one purpose: to be the Grim Reaper of armored columns. Today, we are diving into the engineering of this flying monster and why, after 50 years of service, no one has been able to replace the king of close air support. The origin of the A-10 Thunderbolt II is a story of rebellion against the military's obsession with speed and high-altitude flight. In the late 1960s, the United States Air Force realized it was dangerously unprepared for a massive Soviet tank invasion in Europe. Fast, sleek fighter jets were too quick to spot small targets on the ground and too fragile to survive the wall of anti-aircraft fire they would face. The solution was not a faster jet, but a rugged and heavily armed platform capable of loitering over the battlefield for hours, providing support for the infantry in the most brutal conditions. The development program was launched with a radical set of requirements. The plane had to be inexpensive, easy to maintain, and practically impossible to shoot down. Engineers at Fairchild Republic ignored the trends of the era and looked back at the legendary P-47 Thunderbolt from World War II for inspiration. They wanted a machine that could operate from dirt strips near the front lines, far away from the safety of paved airbases. The result was the A-10, a plane so functional and unrefined in appearance that it earned the nickname Warthog almost immediately, yet its design was a masterpiece of industrial efficiency. To ensure the pilot's survival, the A-10 was built around a titanium bathtub. This is a massive armored shell weighing over 1,200 pounds that protects the cockpit and all flight control systems from direct hits. It can withstand impacts from 23mm armor-piercing rounds and even some larger shells. This meant that while other pilots had to rely on stealth or speed to survive, the A-10 pilot could fly right into the center of a firefight, knowing that their armored capsule would keep them alive through the most intense anti-aircraft fire imaginable. The design of the A-10 is intentionally redundant in a way that modern jets are not. It features dual engines, dual tails, and dual hydraulic systems. But the most incredible feature is its manual backup. If the hydraulics are shot out and the electronics fail, the pilot can switch to manual reversion, using a system of cables and pulleys to fly the plane by pure physical strength. This mechanical heart is what allowed numerous A-10s to return to base with half a wing missing or an entire engine blown off, proving that the machine is nearly impossible to kill. To keep the aircraft in the fight, the engines were placed in a very unusual position, high and at the rear of the fuselage. This was not an aesthetic choice, it was a tactical one. By placing the engines above the tail, the heat signature is shielded from ground-based infrared missiles. Additionally, the engines are placed far apart, so if one suffers a catastrophic failure or fire, it will not damage the other. This ensures that even in a worst-case scenario, the A-10 has a limp-home capability that has saved dozens of pilots' lives over the decades. When the A-10 officially entered service in 1977, many in the Air Force leadership were critical of it. It was slow, it lacked advanced radar, and it did not fit the image of a modern fighter. Critics called it a sitting duck for Soviet missiles and claimed it would be obsolete within a few years. They were wrong. The A-10 was not built for a parade, it was built for the end of the world. It was a specialist in a world of generalists, a machine that commanded respect through its absolute commitment to protecting the soldier on the ground. It is impossible to discuss the A-10 without mentioning its primary weapon, the GAU-8 Avenger. This is not just a weapon mounted on a plane, the A-10 is literally an aircraft built around a gun. The GAU-8 is a 7-barrel Gatling cannon the size of a small car, firing 30mm rounds at a rate of 3,900 rounds per minute. When the gun is removed for maintenance, the tail of the plane must be supported by a jack, or the aircraft will literally tip over backwards because the gun is the primary weight balancing the center of gravity. The power of the 30mm round is immense. Each shell is about the size of a large bottle and is often constructed with a depleted uranium core. These rounds act like kinetic spears, punching through the top armor of a main battle tank with ease. When a pilot pulls the trigger, the recoil is so massive, equivalent to 5 tons of force, that it actually slows the aircraft down in mid-air. Because of this, pilots fire in short, lethal bursts to maintain airspeed and accuracy while engaging their targets. The sound of this cannon is perhaps the most famous noise in military history. Because the rounds travel faster than the speed of sound, the targets on the ground are hit before they even hear the gun firing. First comes the impact, then the explosion, and finally the haunting, low-frequency sound of the cannon itself. For friendly troops, it is the sound of salvation. For the enemy, it is a psychological weapon as much as it is a physical one, signaling that their position is no longer tenable. Accuracy is achieved through a simple yet effective mechanical system. The gun is mounted slightly to the left of the centerline so that the firing barrel is perfectly aligned with the aircraft's center of gravity. This prevents the massive recoil from pushing the nose of the plane off target during a dive. This level of precision allows an A-10 pilot to engage a specific vehicle from over 2 miles away while maneuvering through a chaotic battlefield environment, ensuring that collateral damage is minimized. The ammunition drum for the GAU-8 is a massive cylinder that holds over 1,000 rounds. It is located directly behind the cockpit and is surrounded by additional armor to prevent a catastrophic explosion if the plane is hit. The loading process is an industrial feat, utilizing a specialized loader that cycles the rounds into the drum. Everything about this weapon system was designed for sustained combat, ensuring that the A-10 has enough firepower to neutralize an entire armored company in a single mission. The GAU-8 remains the most powerful gun ever mounted on a combat aircraft. Despite the rise of precision-guided missiles and drones, the direct fire of the 30mm cannon remains incredibly effective because it cannot be jammed or intercepted by electronic warfare. It is a brutal solution to the problem of enemy armor. The Avenger turned the A-10 from a simple ground attack plane into a legendary tank hunter, a reputation that would be solidified during its first major combat deployments. The moment of truth for the A-10 arrived in 1991 during Operation Desert Storm. Before the war, many military analysts predicted the aircraft would be decimated by Iraq's air defenses. Instead, the A-10 became the star of the conflict. It flew over 8,000 sorties and destroyed more than 900 Iraqi tanks, 2,000 other vehicles, and over 1,000 artillery pieces. It was not just an aircraft, it was a one-machine wrecking crew that dismantled a massive army in a matter of weeks. During the Gulf War, the A-10 proved its incredible durability in ways that shocked observers. One famous instance involved an aircraft that was hit by a surface-to-air missile over Baghdad. The blast destroyed much of the rear of the plane and completely disabled the hydraulic systems. Using the manual reversion mode, the pilot flew the crippled jet for an hour and landed it safely, despite having no flight computers or traditional landing aids. This story became a symbol of the Warthog's refusal to quit even under extreme damage. The A-10 also demonstrated its versatility in search and rescue missions. When a pilot was shot down behind enemy lines, A-10s would orbit the crash site, providing a wall of fire to keep enemy soldiers away until a helicopter could extract the survivor. The aircraft's ability to loiter for hours and its massive weapon load made it the perfect guardian for these high-stakes missions. This role saved dozens of airmen from capture and proved that the A-10 was essential for more than just tank hunting. In the decades following the Gulf War, the A-10 became the backbone of operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. In rugged mountain terrain and narrow valleys, the aircraft's ability to fly slow and low was its greatest asset. Unlike high-speed bombers that drop their payloads from 30,000 feet, A-10 pilots could visually identify their targets. They could distinguish between friendly troops and insurgents with their own eyes, providing a level of support that saved countless lives during intense ground combat. The psychological impact of the A-10 on the ground cannot be overstated. Veterans often speak of the effect the aircraft has on a firefight. The moment the Warthog appears, the enemy often ceases their attack to seek cover. The mere presence of the plane is often enough to break an ambush. It is a flying fortress that provides a psychological shield for the infantry, knowing that a machine designed specifically for their protection is overhead and ready to intervene. Despite its success, the A-10 has constantly faced the threat of retirement. The Air Force has attempted to replace it multiple times with more modern multi-role fighters, arguing that the A-10 is too slow for modern contested airspace. However, every time a new conflict begins, the troops on the ground demand the A-10. It is a machine that has outlasted its critics and its intended lifespan, proving that in the chaos of real war, ruggedness and specialized power will always be preferred over high-tech versatility. The final analysis of the A-10 Thunderbolt II is a story of a machine that defined a whole philosophy of warfare. It proved that a weapon does not have to be high-tech to be effective, it simply has to be the best at its specific job. The A-10 established the blueprint for what a close air support aircraft should be, a titanium-armored tank with wings. It has survived the end of the Cold War and dozens of attempts to scrap it, remaining the benchmark of rugged aviation for nearly half a century. The influence of the A-10 can be seen in the way modern militaries think about survivability. It taught engineers that stealth is not the only way to stay alive. Sometimes, you simply need enough armor to take a hit and keep moving. This mentality has influenced the design of armored helicopters and even modern ground vehicles. The A-10 was the pioneer of the industrial jet, a machine that recognized that the most important part of any weapon system is the human being it is trying to protect. Today, as global tensions rise, the A-10 is once again at the center of military discussion. There is significant debate about whether the aircraft could survive in a modern environment where advanced air defenses are a constant threat. While the environment is dangerous, the A-10's ability to operate from damaged runways and its devastating cannon make it a tempting tool for blunting armored breakthroughs. The aircraft may yet have one last chapter left in its long and storied career. The cultural legacy of the A-10 is perhaps the strongest of any modern military aircraft. It is a symbol of grit, reliability, and the bond between the pilot and the ground soldier. For the generations of troops who were supported by this aircraft in their darkest hour, the A-10 is more than a machine, it is a legend. It is a source of immense pride for the crews who maintain it, ensuring that the aircraft is always ready to answer the call of the soldiers in the field. Standing next to an A-10 today, one can feel its imposing, industrial presence. It is a massive machine that radiates a sense of absolute purpose. It does not look like a sleek stealth fighter, it looks like something forged for the specific purpose of combat. From the early designs of the 1970s to the tank killer of today, the A-10 has remained the ultimate tool of ground support. It is the machine that ensures the infantry never fights alone on the battlefield. In the final analysis, the A-10 Thunderbolt II is a magnificent success of 20th century engineering. It was a machine built to do a difficult job, and it performed better than anyone thought possible. It outlasted its rivals, outlived its era, and became a legend that will be discussed as long as there are soldiers on the ground. The A-10 remains the king of the battlefield and the machine that defined close air support for all time. As it continues its service, its legacy remains written in steel.